Hello guys, welcome to my new video, and today we'll talk about a Texas senatorial race that will happen this year with a very competitive stance right now in the Democratic primary, in the Republican primary, and also in all the contests around the general election, because this is a key race for the Democrats to flip. I know this sounds very sketchy, very far-fetched, but it's still a chance that the Democrats might be able to flip the state of Texas. I'm not going to say it is easy because it's not easy at all, but it's still a possibility. When the time goes off, we'll see if it's a real or just a dream for the Democrats. I just want to say thank you for reaching 200 subscribers. We reached that on Thursday. That was just amazing. Thank you guys for all the subscriptions, and don't forget as well to subscribe the channel down below because it'll have election day coverages and also a lot of videos about the upcoming elections in the midterms, okay? And this is a new poll we got this week, last week, that says that in the Democratic primary, Talarico leads against Crockett here, 47 to 38%, but it's a very competitive race considering we have 15% undecided, okay? We know that Colin Allred is now gone out of the race. He decided not to run, and that is a very important aspect. That's why now we have two main candidates going accordingly to the 2026 race. And in the Texas GOP poll, it's even more competitive, okay? It's very, very competitive. Paxton has 27% and Cornyn, the incumbent, has 26%, okay? Both of them can win, of course, and this is a very important aspect because although Paxton is ahead right now in the Republican primary polls, Cornyn is a much better candidate when you go into the general, okay? And if you consider this, we have 29% undecided. So if you go to election day today, we will have the undecided winning. Of course, that doesn't happen, but it's just the way it is right now. As you can see here, what you think is the most important issue facing Texas today, most of the people say the economy, but it's down from August 2025, and the threats to democracy is now up from 15 to 17%. Immigration is down. Mainly, you can argue that Trump is not doing a great job overall, but even Bernie Sanders acknowledged that the immigration aspect, at least as a whole, I'm not meaning the ICE raids, and maybe people don't think it's correct, but you can see that some progress being made there. You can tell me your opinions in the comments down below. I'll be very happy to answer to you and also to discuss some ideas. Healthcare is up, and housing affordability is up. Even though prices of housing are down in Texas as a whole, that's interesting that housing affordability is up. And interest rates is also down. I mean, mortgage rates now are at 6%, if I'm not mistaken. It was at 8% or 8.5% a couple of months ago, so that's going down. That's great for people because interest rates are going down, not in January probably, but when it comes to June, we'll have another cut of 25 basis points at least. That's my expectation, okay? And what you think is the most important issue facing Texas? This is the same thing. I'm sorry, I don't know why they do the same thing, but of course this is a very similar. This is a very small poll, if you will, only 413 people, but it's representative of the state of Texas. So now let's see polls. This is the polls of the Republican primary. As you can see here, Paxton in the RCP, that's an average, leads by 0.3, but it's a very, very close race. And Hunt probably will withdraw. I don't know if that is true or not, but maybe he can withdraw and then just support one of the two main candidates because he's slightly behind. Okay, but we can see that we have two polls saying Paxton +1 and one saying Paxton Cornyn +1, which is that this is very competitive. You cannot tell anything about this, to be honest. You just need to wait because we'll have the primary, I think, in June, if I'm not mistaken. And that will be very key to watch who's going to be then the Republican nominee. Because if it is Paxton, Democrats have a chance. If it is Cornyn, I don't think Democrats have a chance. But we'll see about that. And in the Democratic primary, we have a very wide poll. So Rickle +9, Crockett +8, and Crockett +18. We don't know who's going to be the correct one, of course, but that is interesting. There will be two main candidates. I don't know. I'm sorry. Texas does not need a runoff. There's many states. If you don't reach 50%, you go into a runoff between the two main candidates. I don't think Texas is the case, but if it is, sorry for that, guys. And here how the various scenarios you're going to have. So let's start with Cornyn versus Talarico. So Cornyn +3 on average. But if you go to Paxton versus Talarico, have Paxton +1.5. So that shows that Cornyn is a better candidate for the general. I don't mean in terms of his policies. I don't mean of what he stands for. I just mean in terms of being electorally available to win by a bigger margin. And that's what I'm talking here. When I mean a candidate is great or bad, it's not in terms of his policies. It's in terms of the way he is able to win, and Cornyn is much better in that aspect. If you go to Paxton versus Crockett, Paxton +1, but if you go Cornyn versus Crockett, is Cornyn +5.5. So you can see here the same difference. And the rest doesn't really matter because Hunt is probably not going to win the primary anyway, so that doesn't matter. What needs to happen for the Democrats to win the state of Texas? Because we know that in 2018, Ted Cruz won Texas by only 2.6 points. And this was a very competitive race because Ted Cruz is one of the Republicans that keeps getting reelected, even though nobody likes him inside the party. He's in the establishment. He decided to run for president in 2016. Then he decided he ran for re-election in 2018 and also in 2024. And he was able to keep getting reelected. Of course, the environment in 2024 was much better for him than in 2018. But in 2018, he only won by 2 points. What happened? What happened was that Beto O'Rourke was a complete sensation by then. Okay, he went to every county in Texas, the 200 plus counties in Texas, and campaigned every county. So that's really the aspect. And he was able to catch a huge margin in Dallas, in Houston. For example, Harris County, that was a 17 points gap. And if you go to the presidential, Harris only won by 5, so that's the point I'm making here. But not only that, he was able to catch Latinos. And you know what happened? The Republicans are now getting much better margins inside the Latino population, especially in Texas, okay? In the Rio Grande Valley. They're getting much better percentages. For example, Webb County, that's Laredo. Beto O'Rourke won 71-28. Trump won this county. Trump won this county by 2 points. And many of the counties here, as you can see, look at this area here. You have a lot of red. And look at this, have a lot of blue. El Paso is still, but look at this margin El Paso, 15 points. And look at El Paso here. That was over 50 points. I'm sorry, 49 points. And you can explain this by a variety of factors. Maybe you can talk about the border and how a lot of people that live here are affected by the border problem, the immigration problem of illegals coming in. You can say that, but that's not the way you can explain a huge of a swing. Because even though a swing from 70% down all the way to 48%, that's a swing of more than 60 points. You cannot qualify that in only the border aspect when we know that the border is not the main cause for anything. Look at this. The border immigration is 14% right now. It was 21% back then. But look at this. Economy is the main aspect, but you cannot not say that those people here are affected by that. You can say that immigration in huge numbers may drive wages down. That's just the way economics work, because immigrants are willing to work for less, and that's why in companies and employees wants to hire them because they do the same job but they ask for less, and that's great for companies and for profits. You can say that, and that's one of the main aspects why the salaries they're not having a growth like they had in the previous decades. You can argue that, but still that doesn't explain the fact. Something here need to happen. Probably the campaign. Trump was much more effective than Harris, and he decided, I don't know, maybe to be more effective turning out those voters, and maybe people that didn't vote in 2018 and 2016 voted now for him, and they were just not voting back then. And that's a very important aspect, because you need to understand what demographics means. And you can say that this is going to be a very competitive race, and many Republicans don't like that, because Texas is a red state, ultimately. Democrats did a lot of inroads across a few decades ago, but this is still a red state. And the polls right now we have here are that Paxton and Cornyn are basically dead heat. Nobody can predict who's going to win. And in the Democratic primary, we have Talarico now winning by 9, but Allred was ultimately the favorite, and now we have Talarico winning. We'll see about that. Talarico Paxton, if that's the duo. Talarico Paxton, that shows Paxton +1.5, but that's also a tie from Emerson here, which is a very great pollster. You can argue that this is a toss-up. This is a really toss-up race, and this will ultimately decide who's going to control the Senate. I mean, I talked about Maine. That's also a very important aspect. It's a must-win for the Democrats in order to control the Senate. And Texas is another must-win because they have Texas, Iowa, and Ohio. They need to win 2 out of the three, okay? They can win Ohio with Sherrod Brown. He's a very great candidate. And maybe Texas. But then you don't need Iowa. But if you lose Texas, you need Iowa. And I'm just assuming that they can get Ohio, which is also a very bold bet. But we'll see about that. Also, don't forget, guys, we'll have on next Wednesday, January the 28th, we'll have a video about the early voting. We already started on Wednesday with many early voting. I'm sending the updates in the community tab. On Wednesday, we got 4,000 ballots in the 18th congressional district in Texas, just right here around Houston area. Very important district. And also the Democrats are going to win because there's 2 Democrats running in the runoff, okay? And we'll have a video talking about the early vote on Wednesday, and then on Saturday we'll have the election coverage talking about the district and analyzing the potential results. We know what Democrats going to win, but who's going to win? That's really the question. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you are new as well, and I'll be back on Wednesday with another video. Thank you.